Hello again, everybody. This is Steve, coming to you with more insights into writing and the things that are involved in this. In this one, I'm going to answer a question that I know a lot of you have. I've mentioned this briefly and gave kind of a brief overview of it, but I figured to give you a little bit more in-depth overview of it this time. The question in this case is, what is a superworld? And that's not like an element within the actual, or inside of actually what you're writing. The superworld is the world from which you draw all the elements for your writing. Basically, a superworld, or super universe, whichever way you want to call it, is this gigantic creative world where all of your ideas are stuffed. I mean, literally every one of your worlds, your universes, your societies, people, everything, everybody lives there. And even if it's just, if all of your stories are all about one little neighborhood, there's still a bigger universe that surrounds this, that feeds into that, because there's a lot of stuff in the background that happens that never makes it into the book, but it has a big influence on the book. Sometimes only a small one, but a lot of times, the little things that go on in the background, societal things from nature, things from the galaxy, stuff like that, have a big effect on that story. If you think about it, that's true even of today, because like if you look at just the planet Earth, every day the sun affects our planet. It creates weather. It lights our houses. Our houses, properties, our world, our planet. When it's misbehaving, we have problems. When it's not shining, it's dark. It has a major effect, even though it may not be directly related to any one particular part of what we're doing. There could be, let's use this one that comes with a lot of like temporal novels. They call it the butterfly effect. The little butterfly off in Africa does something, and then the chain of events lead to you getting your baseball game rained on. It's kind of the same idea. There's this big overarching kind of butterfly effect that comes about as a result of all the different elements in that world. And not every story is going to pull from every element. You might have one story pulls from a small pocket within that universe. However, that pocket is still going to be impactful to that story. It's also a good, it's also a good way if you build this universe, and every writer who has ever written before has this universe. You have to have this. It comes as a part of writing. It's, it kind of builds itself as you're working, because different things that you think of, different things that you come up with, your mind, if it's doing things correctly, which any good writer, or anyone who's a good writer who loves their craft, who strives to be the best that they can be, they're going to build this even if they build it unconsciously. I myself, when I first started out, I built it kind of unconsciously, but then as time went along, I made more of a conscious effort to build this the super world, or the super universe of writing. And I had universes, I had societies, I had all kinds of stuff I built in there, and I role played a lot of them. Neighbors kind of thought I was a little weird sitting here talking to myself, but that's just part of how you work out different problems, different ideas, stuff like that. Because the more you get into this, the more you realize that words, phrases, scenes, and stuff have a particular feeling to them. And if the feeling isn't right, you're going to work at it until you get that feeling. Till you get that feeling right, because as soon as the feeling is right, that scene is right, because that everything is going to flow exactly how it should. And it's a little hard to explain what that feeling is. But like I say, it's a little hard to explain it. It's kind of like being an A-rank baseball player. One gentleman I followed years ago, John Paul Jackson happened to mention that, like A-rank baseball players, they have a hard time explaining it to other people because for them it's see ball, hit ball. It's completely instinctive, completely natural. Somebody that has to work at it tends to be able to explain it better. But so I'm doing my best to try to explain this. I think explaining the super world is easier to me than explaining the feelings that you get when you're writing. And I think really when it comes to the feelings, experience is the best teacher. And you will, after a while, you will understand that feeling after you've written enough. One way to look at it in a kind of a smaller sense is if you've ever read a book, and as you go through that book has a particular feel, it has a particular emotion to it, and that emotion can change as the book goes along. Excitement, fear, wonder, love, etc., like that. Those feelings are going to be roughly the same thing you're going to have when you're a writer. The difference is you're going to be directing the story. And yes, the story will generally write itself if you're going in the right direction, but you still are the master of the helm. So even if the story wants to take a weird left turn, you can still steer it back on course. You steer too hard and you break the story, and then and then the story sucks. But you eventually figure out how to finesse that. But anyways, the stories have a particular feel, and one of the nice things about the super world and role playing that stuff is you get to walk through it in what I would consider a safe space, somewhere where you're not feeling forced to produce or to perform or whatever like that. This is a place where you can go in, you can play around, you can make mistakes, and just have fun. You also learn to do off-the-cuff story creation. Off-the-cuff story creation is really useful. Having and developing that skill is really useful when you're building stories. Because that will help actually expedite your story writing in some really interesting ways. For example, anyways, back that up before I go to that. The reason why being able to do story creation off the cuff is you're able to work with a larger image, work with a field of literary creation, shall we say. So like if you're able to create just off the cuff, and again, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this that it makes sense to everybody. But the more you're able to write off the cuff and create off the cuff and create spontaneously and do it in a way that is successful every time, in other words, you create a good story, a good scene, etc., like that, what that allows your mind to do then is now it's able to expand out its view to the larger area. You're not focusing on just that one little bit, like a rabbit entered the garden and started eating carrots. The farmer saw it and chased him off, and then realized he had made a mistake, so the two of them went down to the bar and had a drink. Something like that. Being able to just come up with that, and even if it's just in outline, you can, as long as you get the outline, you can then flesh that out from there and create really interesting stories. And if you're wondering, yes, there's a lot of this that I'm doing off the cuff right now, because it's good practice for me too. Anyways, going back to my super world, just to give you an example of some of what I've done. One of the segments within the super world, my super world, is a universe where Star Trek exists, but it's not Star Trek as you know it. The main protagonists in this world are called the Tyrrhenians, who are human-like. And I state human-like because they're not actually humans, but they're human-like. Differentiations are that once they hit like middle age, 30, 35, they don't age any further. They live to about 200 years old, and it's funny because they hit somewhere between 198 and 205, and their body just like pops a fuse. They'll just be walking down the street, and they just drop, and they're done right there. That's how they die. They live. They're eternally young up until they're about 200, and then they just drop in their tracks. The galaxy that they're in starts out with. The Tyrrhenians are kind of the local superpower. They're the eggheads of the galaxy, and they realize that you got all these other people out there that are like a bunch of 2-year-olds fighting over toys. So they create the Tyrrhenian Alliance, which is just it's not the Federation of Star Trek. It's basically okay, we're gonna be NATO, or we're gonna be not NATO. It would be more like we're gonna be the UN, and you guys are gonna be under us, and we're all gonna play nice and everybody be friendly, and that lasts for a couple hundred years, and it falls apart. So everybody goes out, starts beating up on each other, and it's a couple hundred years of war and mayhem and darkness, and then they create the Confederation, which is another attempt at this. And this time, though, it's bigger because they've run into more races. Their technology has improved enough, they've been able to expand out and meet new races. So they bring these new races in, and the Confederation is bigger than the Alliance was, or Tyrrhenian Alliance. Well, that goes for a little bit longer, like 300 years. No, excuse me, Tyrrhenian Alliance was 150. This was 300 years. It was 300 years, and then that poops out. Tyrrhenian's like, well, shoot, okay. Well, third time's a charm. So then they go in, they create the Galactic Alliance. More planets, more people, bigger area. Galactic Alliance lasts 300 to 500 years. I don't remember exactly how much it was. I didn't do a lot with that part of the universe as far as role-playing goes, but it was something like 300 to 500 years, then that poops out. By this time, the Tyrrhenians have figured out, okay, we know who's poisoning the well. We know why they're poisoning the well, what they're trying to gain from this, and then they create their version of the Federation, which is not the same as the Star Trek Federation. This is an entirely different Federation. The Federation organization on this is kind of it's a blend of different leadership styles, and unlike the previous three, it's very flexible. It's allowed to grow and to breathe. It's got its own constitution. It's got it's from this Federation that I got some of the idea for United Galactic Worlds and the Alliance of Sentient Worlds for Earthfleet, because I role-played and beta-tested a lot of ideas for galactic governments through that super world and that Federation and stuff. One of the other things that's in that is in that super world, or that segment of it, is they have a group called the Elise, and this actually has a bit of a nod towards Star Wars, because among the Elise you have the Light Warriors, which are the good guys, and the Dark Warriors. I know that's kind of like, oh yeah, that's lame, that's cliche and stuff. You got to remember, I developed that particular part of the super world back when I was 12. So yeah, it's dumb like a 12-year-old would do. And I'm not calling 12-year-olds dumb. I'm just saying, as far as some people might look at it, it's like, well, that's dumb and childish. Well, yeah, I made it when I was 12 years old. What do you expect, right? And I just, I never updated it. I as far as, Light Warriors and Dark Warriors. Now, that being said, one thing that did come out of that was another block in my super world where they have the Guardians. Now, that is an upgrade and improvement on the Elise / Light and Dark Warriors. With that one, the Guardians, you have that has kind of almost a Dragon Ball Z flavor. I mean, there's there is influences in there from Dragon Ball Z, but then it's completely redone in a different way. Like you've got Rogue Dragon, who's the top dog. He's also the strongest in the in the galaxy. Once you get above him, you start getting into the interdimensional space, because he's level 12, rank 9. And I could explain the ranking system on that at a later time. But yeah, he's level 12, rank 9. You get to be level 13, and the interdimensional guardians are going to pull you in, because anything above or 13 and above, you're too dangerous to the dimension and you might destroy it. That's how powerful you are. So Rogue plays his cards very carefully. He's a very benevolent leader. He gets hardcore when he needs to, but generally he's very benevolent. Lets all of his underlings handle the dirty work. Because if you call him in, something really bad has happened, because he's that powerful. But yeah, the Guardians kind of they do Overwatch across the galaxy and planets and stuff. And part of the Overwatch idea was spawned from how Japanese anime portrays certain isekais with you got these various quote unquote gods up in the quote unquote heavens, or up in heaven, if you will, whatever heaven that they decide to have in that particular show or manga or whatever. And they kind of act as Overwatch on the planet, and that was kind of influenced by that. But then I took it and rearranged it and did some new things with it, which is part of writing. Take an old idea, don't follow the trope. Take the old idea, rehash it, remake it, redo it, make it your own, make it unique. Do something distinctive with it. Because like with the Guardians and the Overwatch, another element that you might see in it is Justice League. And how they had like the watchtower, and they were overwatching the planet, and all of the Justice League members are running around protecting the planet and stopping bad guys and things. So again, kind of the same thing. The politics of the Guardians is generally to stay out of planetary affairs. Their job is to keep the planet from destroying itself and keep other people from destroying the planet. So keep outsiders from doing any harm on the planet, and to keep the people themselves from doing any major harm on the planet. Now, if like two kingdoms want to have a war, the Guardians aren't going to say anything. If the two kingdoms are fighting over a weapon that might destroy the whole planet, now the Guardians are going to step in, because now the danger's on a planetary level, or even just a regional or continental level, where you're going to have mass death if they get their hands on this thing. So, and another interesting thing about the Guardians, which makes them different from some of the other things like Justice League, superheroes, Star Wars, any of that kind of stuff, is that all of the Light Warriors all the Guardians are linked together. And I'll explain that in a second. But one of the things I want to explain too is that with the Guardians, they're similar. They're a more advanced version of the Elise in a sense. But instead of having a central organization where you have light and dark, there is no central organization. You have technically two separate groups, but they're all the same, and they're all what is called wielders. Wielders in this case being wielders of pure energy. They're not like Jedi where you're wielding the Force, quote unquote. In this case, they're actually using galactic energy, and they're wielding that and bending it. You could say, if you in an Avatar sense, that they're bending energy. It's probably not accurate, but that would be a good way to build a picture in your mind. But yeah, that's kind of what they are. They're wielding this energy, and they draw from the dimensional divide. The dimensional divide is the space between dimensions. It's filled with energy, really highly powerful energy, and it's kind of the blood that feeds the. If you think of the individual dimensions as like single cells within your body, the dimensional divide and all the energy in there is the bloodstream that feeds those cells. So, and anyways, these guys wield that energy, draw it from the dimensional divide, and use it to do everything that they need to do. Their enemies within that universe are called the Devastators. These would be equivalent to the Dark Warriors from the other universe with the Federation and stuff. I've got trying to think of some other examples that I've got. But anyways, that's I'll stop there. I mean, I'm just barely scratching what this super world is that I have. But anyways, that's stuff that I will role play through, and I've gone through various wars, engagements, fights. Like with the Guardians, Rogue Dragon is the leader of the Guardians, and the most powerful person in that dimension. Second most powerful is Crassus, who's the leader of the Devastators. And believe me, the Devastators are dark, evil, nasty people. I mean, they make Darth Sidious look like a puppy. That's how evil and sadistic these people are. And in this universe, and I may write a book on this at some point in time, but at this point I'm not actually looking to. I'm just using it for ideas and for role playing to help flesh out different things and, kind of keep my creative juices flowing, which is important as I get older. But there's this one part that I role played, and I'll try to explain this briefly because I don't want to go too long with this video. But basically, Crassus gets all upset, and Rogue kind of realizes that we need to do something about this guy and get rid of him and his Devastators because they're just causing us too many problems and causing the universe too many problems. So what he does is he plays his cards very carefully, and he gets Crassus all riled up. I mean, this dude is just PMS on steroids at this, when this finally comes down. He is just enraged beyond, all possible reason and logic. So he is not reasoning anymore at this point. He's just, hyper Karen level mad. And just like with the Light Warriors, I keep saying Light Warriors. Just like with the Guardians, he is linked with all of his Devastators, but his is more for control. With Rogue, he links them he's linked with everybody, and everybody's linked with everybody else in like this big power sharing network. With Crassus, it's a control network. I mean, he shares power as needed, but it's more for control. With Rogue, it's more for mutual aid and assistance, because if somebody's downrange and they're working a planet and all of a sudden they go off the grid, everybody's going to know. And it makes communication easier from Rogue too, because he can literally just 1-800 or 1-800 get somebody down there now, so, and figure out why they're disconnected or where'd they go, did something happen to them, etc. like that. And reinforcements can show up real bloody quick because they know exactly where you are at every single moment of every single second. And this network, like if you're fighting somebody and they're more powerful than you, or you're running low on power, others can transfer power to you until they can get reinforcements in there. They can transfer extra power to you so that you're able to keep up the fight and keep going and hang in there until help arrives. Well, anyways, in this fight between Crassus and Rogue, Crassus finally decides, that's it, I'm done, I'm coming after this guy, and I'm going to take him out once and for all. And when he does that, he literally sucks all the power away from all of his Devastators. He doesn't care if they're out in space. He doesn't care if they're standing on flaming hot lava. He doesn't care if they're in the middle of a star doing something, or if they're in any kind of dangerous situation. He doesn't care. He sucks all the energy out of every one of his Devastators with the idea that, I can just go back in and corrupt more of them and make more Devastators. So he kills off the entire Devastator Corps just to gain enough power to go against Rogue. And that's step one of what Rogue wanted, because then that gets rid of the Devastators. That frees up his guys. So even if Crassus begged off on the fight, he's still in the advantage because he's now solved the first of his goals, which was to get rid of the Devastators. Well, then Crassus comes up to him, and the two start fighting. The difference is Crassus has, when these two fire at each other, they're not like shooting laser beams or energy beams or something. They're throwing massive walls of energy at each other. We're talking supernova types, 1,000 mega blasts of energy, just huge firepower. Because you got to remember, these guys are at the top of their game. Their energy level is just ridiculous. These guys are capable of destroying dimensions, or pretty close to it. That's how powerful they are. And they're throwing wave after wave after wave of energy at each other. The problem is when those waves collide, they create a recoil effect or a bounce back. And that bounce back causes damage if the energy has nowhere to go, which is the case with Crassus. So every time these two slam that energy together, he takes damage. And he loses energy because he's having to not only throw the energy out to try and attack Rogue, he's also having to throw out energy to dampen or mitigate some of that rebound. He's still taking damage, he's still losing power, but he's able to mitigate it so it doesn't take as much damage. But again, that's causing him to use energy faster. Rogue, on the other hand, knew it was coming, so he told all of his people to get down on the ground, get somewhere safe, go into a meditative state. And what you see with him is when these waves come in and that energy rebounds, he's able to use all of his people like shock absorbers. And every time that wave hits, you see his people just kind of like these little pulsing lights, because the energy flows down through those pathways that he has connected to each of them, and they kind of act as a capacitor, and that energy swells up in them, and then when the pressure stops and the flow reverses the other direction, that energy then drains out and goes back to Rogue. So it acts like a shock absorber. So he's not taking damage. I mean, he's going down in energy, yes, because that it takes energy to neutralize that energy and to fight and stuff like that. So he's burning energy while he's doing this, but the shock effect is not as great as it is with Crassus, and he's not taking damage because he's able to buffer that energy. Well, fight goes on, and Rogue's going down in energy, and Crassus is going down in energy, and Crassus finally gets to a point where he's like, okay, I've expended all the energy I dare expend. I'm gonna back out of this fight, and I'm gonna go away, and I'll rebuild myself and heal and all this. And Rogue's been crippled, and I can now go in and come back later, and I'll be stronger, and I'll be able to beat him because he's been all worn down and stuff. And that's what he's thinking. And just as he's getting ready to skip out of there, Rogue pops over there, and he's like, no, you ain't going anywhere. Crassus is like, oh, yes, I am. Our fight's over. And Rogue's like, no, it's not. And he takes out Crassus. Crassus was not expecting that. And this was completely planned by Rogue. He had everything in place to make sure he took out the Devastators and he took out Crassus. When he took out those two, that greatly simplified the job of the Guardians to protect the galaxy, because now all you got's the little small fries who were unaffiliated with the Devastators. I mean, they're still Dark Wielders, but they don't have the same power. They don't have the same goals. Some of them, some of these guys are just jerks. They're not like evil or anything. They're just a-holes, if you will, for lack of a better term. But anyways, I explained that just to show kind of how I use that super universe to develop stories, and I even develop stories inside those universes that I don't actually use in my books, but the process of developing them is good practice, and it's good for writing and helping you through everything you need to know to actually build this super world, so that you can build your stories and build other things in your writing. Develop characters, develop personalities, develop like with the Federation part of my universe that I have, how to develop republics and empires and different things, and how are they ruled, how what is their what brings about their rise and their fall, what is the politics behind it. And I covered just the bare scratching the surface of that, because there is so much politics underneath that surface. I didn't go into that because we'd be in here for 14-15 hours if I tried explaining it all. There's that much there. I went through numerous different wars and confrontations, everything from great political discourses to sweeping battles of multiple armadas, or little little fleet skirmishes and stuff like that. A small fleet skirmish I had was they had a Federation patrol that was running along the perimeter of, and it wasn't the quote-unquote neutral zone, so don't get that Star Trek stuff mixed in there, because there was no neutral zone. It was a border, period. But anyways, they had a hostile enemy on the other side who was trying to stir the pot, and this Federation fleet was flying around. They had, if I remember correctly, they had a cruiser, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates. I think that was what they had. Yeah, I think they had a cruiser, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates. And as they're flying along, they come across an enemy fleet. Now, you're going to love this enemy fleet. The enemy fleet had a Dread, a Super Dread, 2 destroyers, or 2 battleships, 4 destroyers, and 8 frigates. And, your first thought's going to be, well, yep, the Federation guys are screwed. Actually not, because the Federation ship, although it was not a gun cruiser, and if you remember my previous, if you remember my previous videos about the gun-ships, where they're basically, the whole ship is built around the gun, or the main gun, that's exactly what this captain did. He had a 3-shot main super gun, so he's kind of like a little flying Death Star, in a sense, or Death Star in miniature. And he comes up against him, and these guys would have just wiped out that Federation fleet, because they didn't have any reinforcements close enough that could have helped them, and they couldn't have run away fast enough because the enemy ships were faster. So they would have just died. So what he does is he's like, okay, I'm going to go for broke here. And he has his ship rigged for this super gun on his cruiser, and he targets down the... I can't remember if it was the Dread or the Super Dread. I think he went after the Super Dread. Go big or go home. Fires at it. Literally detonates this ship. This ship then, with splash damage, takes out the 2. It doesn't completely destroy him, but knocks him out. It takes out the Dread. Yeah, because he hit the Super Dread. It knocked out the Dread. It knocked out the 2 battleships, and it knocked out the 4 destroyers. Or was it 4 destroyers? Battleships? No, it was the 2 battleships, the 4 cruisers, and the 8 destroyers. The frigates were far enough out they didn't get hurt. But that one shot, he still had 2 more shots left in his capacitors. That one shot literally disabled that fleet. And he could have gone in and probably fought the frigates and finished them off, but he was like, nope, I'm out. Turned around. He was out of there. So it's space skirmishes like that that drew a lot of that I created and then drew ideas from. If you read First Dawn, there's a battle in there between Junau Lords that's a little bit of a nod to that particular battle. So I basically I took that battle, fleshed out the ideas, and then cherry-picked the parts I wanted out of it and put it into a different story that was used in an actual book that got published. So anyways, we're at almost 34 minutes, so I'll shut up. I've said enough on this one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the next video, but as I think of things to share and to tell you about, I will cover those, and then we can go. If you guys want to start doing writing practicals or things where you're hands-on and stuff, I can do those. I can't do lives or live streams. Maybe on Rumble I can, but I don't have the streaming software to do it, so I can't even do it on Rumble. But we can go through. But I'm on Discord. I mean, worst comes to worst, we could do a writing workshop on Discord, and we could talk it out and go through the process of writing and creating, story building, idea building, etc. like that. So just, if you're interested, let me know. Or if you just want me to keep doing these tutorials, I can do that too. So anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Also, hopefully this video had good sound. I'm I'm trying to sort that out. But one thing I'm noticing is that I've got all these different programs that keep screwing with my sound and taking the mic volume up and down and left and right and every which way. And I try to catch it at the beginning, but then those programs will just randomly change the volume on me and I won't catch it. So yeah, some of my videos are going to be a little loud, or have been a little loud. Some of them have been kind of soft, so I do apologize for that. I'm trying to figure out what in the world is causing this and try to lock it in so it stops happening. But anyhow, I'll catch you guys later, and thank you for listening.